All right, so we'll just get started. Looks like we're missing maybe 3 people. So let me share my screen. Okay, so first off, we're going to start out today by doing what we do pretty much every time. It seems like I'm going to go over something on Canvas. In this case, I'm going to go over the quiz format for today. So the quiz is going to start at 11 a.m. You're going to have 15 minutes. It's going to be timed, so you need to make sure that you go to the quiz at 11 a.m. It's going to open up then. And then once you go into the quiz, you're going to have 15 minutes to do it, and then it's going to close automatically. So you want to make sure you have a Canvas already opened up, before we start the quiz. I'll give you some time, though, before. So to get there, let me move this out of the way. All right, I'm going to go to student view just so I can show you what it looks like for you. Okay, so we're going to go over to quizzes on the left-hand side here. Oh, you know what? Okay, I got to leave student view really quick. All right, so I made a fake quiz to show you what it's going to look like. But for you, you're just going to see quiz 1, MATLAB basics, and then you'll click on that. So you see it says it's not available until today at 11 a.m. and it's due at 11:15. So you're going to click on this quiz, but right now I'm going to click on this fake one. Okay, I'm going to go to the student view like you're going to see it. Okay, so, I just made one question here, but this is the kind of layout that you're going to see today. So you see up top, once I opened up the quiz, 15 minutes started. So there's a countdown that you'll see up top. And then I'm going to have, a question here, and then you're going to type in your answer here. So I already have these variables created. And so if you see, basically I'm going to have, these fill in the blanks for every question. So most of them only have one fill in the blank. I think one question has 3, where you're defining 3 variables. So you're just going to look at the question. It's going to say, in this case, make a fake array x. So I already defined x for us. From 0 to, I don't even want to say the number, with a step size of 0.234. So then you just go in here, and then you would make your array, and whatever. Okay. So again, you can see your time up top. Once you're done, you'll click on submit. Okay, so we can't change any answers. You're ready to submit. I'll submit it. So it might show auto grading, and you see in this case it shows I have the wrong answer. I have the quiz set up to only show you what you put for your answer. So I don't have it set up to do the auto grading because maybe my correct answer has a semicolon at the end to suppress output, but if you didn't put a semicolon, that can still be a correct answer, but Canvas is going to say, oh, that's wrong. So I don't want you to worry about that. I'm going to read through all of your answers by myself to see if you have the correct answer or not. And the quiz is 8 questions. When I did it, it only took me a few minutes, but of course I made the quiz, but I don't think it should take you the whole time. So I want to give you a lot of time for this first one just so we can kind of get a feel for, I don't know, I just want to make sure that you have all that time to at least complete this first quiz, and then we'll see if it was basically too easy, if you had too much time and stuff like that. So we'll talk about that probably next time. Okay, any questions on the quiz?
Is it only one question, Professor? How many questions does it consist of?
You guys are going to have 8 questions, but again, you should have a lot of time to work on it.
Are we going to do a review of chapter 1 before our quiz, or is it chapter 2 today?
I'm going to have a little bit of a review, and it is, pretty relevant to the quiz, so I would make sure that you pay attention.
Okay.
But a lot of the quiz is really on, some of chapter 1, but a lot of what we covered in class for chapter 2, like making arrays and appending array, stuff like that. All right, any other questions? Okay. Oh yeah, also I want to say that, so the quiz is going to start at 11. You can have the choice to either stay in the Zoom call, or if you know, feel more comfortable leaving and just, you know, being on your complete, you know, by yourself, that's fine too. But I would recommend staying in the Zoom call, because if you have a question, you can send me, you know, a direct message on Zoom or something like that, and then I can answer your question if there's anything that you have a question about. Okay. All right, so we're gonna get started now. So again, we're gonna have a bit of a review. Okay. This over here. Okay, so we're gonna again go over a review. So we're first gonna go over creating arrays using both the colon operator and then the linspace command. We'll go over different ways to create a row vector, a column vector, and a matrix. We'll go over appending arrays. So, you know, for the case of having something like 2 or more row vectors, and then we can append to those arrays and make a larger row vector. Talk about making a column vector, you know, again, having 2 or more, appending them to make a larger column vector. And then we'll talk about matrix creation. So there's 2 ways we can make a matrix. Well, at least 2 very relevant ways. We can build the matrix through column or row vectors, or we can build it through column vectors. And then we'll talk about the transpose operation, where we're going to swap the rows and columns of some array. Okay, and again, I would pay attention right now because a lot of this stuff is going to be pretty similar in the quiz. Okay, so we're going to start out with this exercise here. So I want you to create this vector right here using 2 different methods. So for one of them, you're going to use the colon operator, and then for the other one, you're going to use the linspace command. So create 2 variables, like maybe one of them will be A1 and the other is A2. So I'll give you like a minute or 2. Okay, and then I launched a poll. Hopefully that's not like totally in your way. So just when you're done, just put it to yes. All right, I'm going to give you 20 more seconds. All right, so let's go over this right now. Also, I guess I skipped the slide for the schedule, so I'll just go over that. So we're going to have our review here. Then we're going to continue arrays later on in the class. Let me close out of the poll. So we're going to talk about transpose operations, array addressing. I got a question on array addressing in the Discord. We briefly talked about that before, but we're going to go in a lot more depth today. And we'll go over the magnitude, length, and absolute value, and then multi-dimensional numeric arrays. And then you have your quiz. I know you're all really excited for that. So yeah, sarcastic. Okay, so let's go over this exercise. So using the colon operator, we're going to do 0, colon 1, and then colon 6. So we wanted to make a row vector starting at 0 using a step size of 1 and then ending at 6. All right, so there's that. Now I'll do A2 equals one space. We want to start at 0 once again, and we want to end at 6. And then for our last argument for the linspace command, we need to specify the length. So since we're going from 0 to 6, we have 7 elements, so I'm going to type in 7. And then we get the same row vector right there. Okay. All right, so we have another exercise here. I want you to make this matrix. So I want you to make it or build it in one variable again. So maybe do like capital A1. I want you to build it from row vector. So you're going to make and do it on one line of code as well. So you're going to define a row vector, and we're essentially going to append that row vector in the same line. So you're going to make this matrix one way with row vectors and the other just with column vectors. All right, so we talked about this a bit last class. All right, so I'm going to put that poll up again. If it's like in your way when you're working on it, then let me know and I'll kind of delay posting it. Okay, I'll give you 30 more seconds. Okay, so I'm gonna end the poll now. Okay, let's clear this. So the first one I'm gonna do is using row vectors. So I want to create this matrix. So I'll do 1, 2, 3. So that's our first row right there. Or we could use columns if we want. That's just more work to me, but do what you want. And we're going to use a semicolon because now we want to make a new a new row below this first row. So we'll do 4, 5, 6. And then there's our matrix right there. And now we want to make the same matrix with basically building it from columns. So we need to use brackets, and we're going to wrap each column vector in its own set of brackets. So we'll do 1 semicolon 4. And we're going to use a space or a comma because now we want to make a new a new column to the right of this column. We'll do 2 semicolon 5, and then 3 semicolon 6, and then we have that same matrix right there. So any questions on making these matrices or from the previous question with the row vector?
Is there any particular reason you'd want to use that A2 instead of the A1 version when we're doing this?
No, it's just just good to know.
All right.
Yeah, I've always done this top version up here just because it's quicker. Okay. All right, so we
Commas, by the way.
question. What'd you say?
Do you even need those commas by the 1 and 2 for A1?
No, you don't. So yeah, you saw on this first row vector I made, I used commas, but on the second one I didn't. So yeah, you can either use commas or you don't have to use them at all. So I could have just done this, and then we get that same matrix. Okay, so we have another exercise here. I think this is the last one. Okay, so just work on that for a bit. For this, so I want you to define the column vectors first. So make a line of code for the column vector A, make a line of code for the column vector B, and then we're going to go on a new line and we're going to make this row vector R from those two column vectors. So you're going to have to transpose them. Thirty more seconds. Okay. All right, so let's do this right now. Clear all this. Okay, so I'm first going to create this column vector A. So A equals -2, -2, 9, 7, and -10. B, we'll do 3, 7, 9. Okay, so now we want to create this row vector R, and we want to use, we want to start it out with this column vector B, but we're going to have to transpose it, because right now we have a column vector, and we want to make, we have two column vectors, and we want to make one row vector from them. So we'll do R equals B. Now we're going to transpose B. And then we can use a comma or we can use a space, and then we do A transpose. And then we get our row vector. Okay. Let's also okay, yeah, we can't do that. Okay. I didn't think we could. I want to make sure though. So you see here I tried doing just B and A, but that's not going to work because I'm trying to define basically a row vector here, but so far I only had a column vector, so it was trying to, it couldn't do that because I had two column vectors, not row vectors, but I'm using a row vector operation here, so maybe that was confusing. So let's just kind of redo it. So you want to do it this way. So we want to transpose each column vector, basically right away. Okay, any questions on this one? All right. All right, so this is, I think we kind of already did something like this. So I'm not going to have you, really work on this on your own. We'll just kind of go through it right now. So we want to create this matrix A on one line of code by creating and modifying row vectors. So we're going to do A equals, so I want to make a row vector, basically two row vectors. So I'll do 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. All right, and then we're going to do a semicolon here. Now we're going to define a new row vector 2, 0, 2, 4. Okay, so right now, if I was going to press enter, then basically we just made this matrix here. So we have a 2x4 matrix, but I want to make a 4x2 matrix. So I'm just going to go back up here, and then I can use the transpose operation, and then we can get that 4x2 matrix just like that. Okay, so in this line of code, basically what we did is we defined this 2x4 matrix, but then we also wanted to transpose it, so we used the transpose operation. Then we can make this matrix just like that. If I didn't want to use the transpose operation, I could also define this matrix by doing 3, 2, and then we're going to make a new row beneath that 4, 0, 5, 2, 6, 4. And then we get that same matrix just like that. So, there's not really any preferred way to do this. I just want to make sure you guys know how to use this transpose operation. All right, any questions? Okay. Okay, so we can also use the transpose operation to make a regularly spaced column vector. So far we've been using the colon operator to make a regularly spaced row vector. But if we wanted a column vector for whatever reason, we can do that. We just need to use the transpose operation. So if we want to, we'll make some domain here. So I'm going to have to use brackets. I'll talk about that in a second, but we'll do like 0, 1 to 10. So right now I have a row vector from 0 to 1 to 10. If I press, I have a row vector from 0 to 10 with a step size of 1. Okay, but if I wanted that to be a column vector, we have our brackets there, and then we're going to use the transpose operation. And now we have a regularly spaced column vector here from 0 to 10 with a step size of 1. Okay, so if I didn't use brackets, let's see what happens then. Okay, so if I don't have brackets, well, then I can make this row vector here. But if I wanted to make it a column vector, and again, if I didn't have brackets, it's not going to do anything. So it's not doing anything because I didn't define or I didn't wrap it around brackets. So we wanted to make that column vector. We're going to have to be sure to wrap it in brackets, wrap that vector in brackets, and then use the transpose operation. And then we're going to get that column vector.
What if we use parentheses? Can we use parentheses also, or just brackets would be the best?
I think you need to use brackets. I never even tried parentheses. Let's try it. Oh, that works too. So usually we use just by convention brackets though. So if you use parentheses like in the quiz or something, I wouldn't mark you down for that probably, but again, that convention is to use brackets, so I would use that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about array addressing. So array addressing is basically if we have some array and we want to look at the value of some element in that array, we can write out some code to do that. So we don't need to look at some array manually by going in the workspace or something like that. That could be pretty tedious, especially if we have a large array. Okay. So you'll see right here on the slides, I'm using this command or function here called randy. I never discussed this before. This will be later on in the book, but basically I just got tired of typing out random arrays by myself. So I just wanted to use the random basically function in MATLAB that creates random numbers. So this is, I guess, something else you can learn right now too. So in this case, Randy, so with an I, that's going to create some random digits and they're going to be integers. So that's why we have the I. Inside these brackets here, I'm creating random numbers, integers, within the range of 0 to 20. And then we have comma 4, comma 5. That just means we want to make a 4 by 5 matrix. So, you know, everything on the quiz is where we ended off last time. So, you know, this of course won't be on the quiz or anything. It won't be even on your next quiz or anything. This is, again, this random function is later on in the book, but it's just something that was easy for me to make these slides. Okay, so I'm gonna do just another random function here. So we'll do our random array. So we'll make a random array from, I don't know, from digits from 0 to 10. And let's do a 6 by 7 matrix right there. Okay, so here's our matrix. So if I want to look at, let's say I want to see the value for the 4th row and the 7th column, what I can do is A, so that's our matrix A, and then I want the 4th row, so we put in a 4, comma, and then I want the 7th column. So remember, for matrices, we use the convention M by N. So we have M by N, that means rows by columns. Okay, so if I do A, 4, comma 7, then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We're in the 4th row here, and then this 7th column, which is the last one right here, and then we see our value, which is 2. I could have assigned a variable here, so I'll do I equals A, 4, comma 7, then high, that equals 2. By. We'll do the second row, 4th column. So by equals 7. So second row and then the 4th column. So we're right here. So let's kind of give more context here. Let's do okay, so I'm going to make should have brackets here. A random array from integers from -100 to 200. And then I'm gonna go kind of crazy. So we have 300 rows, and then we'll do 1,000 or 2,167 columns. So right now I should suppress this output. I shouldn't press enter right now because that's gonna be a ton of stuff on the screen, but I'm gonna do it. All right. So that's a lot of stuff. So now imagine wanting to, you know, to look at the 137th row and 2,134th column. That would suck manually, right? I could double click on it, and then that's going to open up our workspace here. So I could look, I could see which row we're on and which column we're on. But you can see that would pretty much suck if we're trying to look for the value for some index in here. All right, so that's why instead we're going to use array addressing, where we can just type in some code. So I don't know, A232. That's the row, and then we'll type in some column, 2132. And then that value is 59. So why don't we actually just look at this right now? And then you can kind of, again, see why you wouldn't want to look manually. So 232, here we are. Here's our row here. And 2132. Oh, so close. All right, so here we are, 59. Okay, it takes a lot of time. So that's why we want to use array addressing, where we can just type out some code. Okay. So on the homework, one of the questions I had in the beginning was for you to specify the last element in an array by using the end command. So we didn't go over that, so I took that off the homework, but we'll talk about that right now. So let's create some random vector here. So I'm going to use randy just so we have integers. Then we'll do like 13 rows and then 1 column. So we're going to have a column vector right here. Why didn't it give us a column vector? Oh, because I did randy. Okay. So if I'm doing that, then I need to specify my range of integers. So we'll do 0, 10, and 13, 1. Okay, there we go. So here's our column vector. So if I wanted to look at the last element in this array and have that output, I'll just assign some variable here called last. And then we're going to do A. So we want to look in this column vector A. And then I'll type in end. And then that'll give us the value for the end of that column vector. So in this case, it's 4. Okay. Or I could do, I think I have this in a slide as well. Maybe I don't. So another thing, we'll leave it. So I can do the length of A. That's 13. And then I can do last of A equals, we'll do A of 13. And that'll give us 4. So basically here what I did, instead of using end, I found the length of A. That'll give us the length of that column vector. So we have 13 elements in here. So then I know that that 13, that's the last value in that column vector. So it's another way to do the same thing, but we're typing out more stuff here. So it'd be better to use the argument end. Okay. Any questions on that? The difference from randy and rand. So, okay, yeah, let's do this right now. So I'll show you just by hand. I'll make some vector A, and then we're going to use the rand function. So we'll do a column vector. So if I use just rand, then it's just going to have random numbers, and they can have decimal points in there. If I do B equals randy, in this case, I'm going to have to specify a range of numbers here, and they're going to be integers. So the I at the end of rand, so randy, that means I need to specify, or I'm going to have whole numbers basically. So in this case, I now have to specify a range of integers that I want. So we'll do 0 to 10. And again, I want to have a 10 by 1 column vector. And there we go. So in both of these, I have a column vector with 10 rows, but if I use just rand, that'll just be any random number. Maybe positive, that might be a thing. But if I use Randy with an I here, then it's going to be a whole number. Does that answer your question? Okay. So yeah, again, I'm not going to test you on this or anything, at least for a while. I don't even know when they talk about random numbers. I forget, but it's just a convenience thing for me. Okay, so another thing we can do here is look at the minimum and the maximum value for an array. Oh, actually, first off, before we do that, okay, so I wanted to talk about this a little bit more. For me, this was already, relevant for some of the labs that we do here at Cal State Fullerton. So I forget which lab it was for, to be honest, but using this end argument, it will be convenient if you have like a large data set, and maybe for these data sets, they are different different sizes. So I think it was actually for 306B, so that's our fluids and thermal lab. So I think we had a lab it was a heat transfer lab, and we were recording a temperature for something, I forget what, and it was automated in, I think, LabVIEW. So we had all these different readings, and we had, I don't know, let's say like 5 different column vectors. So they were all of different lengths, and we needed to look at the last value for each of those column vectors. So in that case, you want to save some time, you want to automate it. And so you don't want to look manually for the end of each of these column vectors. So what you do is you would write a script and you would use a for loop, which we'll talk about later. But then you would go through each of those column vectors and you'd say, okay, you're going to go through each of these column vectors and look for that last value. So, in that case, you can just write some pretty basic code and you can automate it instead of looking for that last value manually for each vector. So imagine if you had a data set of like, 100 temperature readings where you had 100 row vectors or column vectors. You could automate that pretty well using MATLAB. Okay. So the minimum and maximum values in an array, that'll be something else that should be pretty relevant to you. So sometimes we want to see the maximum value. So we'll do Randy once again. We'll do, I don't know, -10 to 200. That's our range of values. And we'll do a 2x3 matrix here. I should have made a vector, actually. We'll talk about matrices later on, so let's clear that. X equals Randy, -10 to 20. Okay, so we're going to make, we'll do a row vector. So 1, 20. So we're going to have one row vector here, and we have 20 columns. So if I want to see the maximum value in this row vector, all I have to do is do max of x. And in this case, the maximum value is 18. So again, here I had a random row vector. So this would be kind of annoying to look through and look for the maximum value just by your eyes. So using this function is going to be nice and convenient for us. You could also do the minimum, so just min of whatever vector we're looking at. In this case, it's -10. Okay, so those are pretty simple, but again, they're going to be pretty relevant for a lot of, I don't know, things we're working on.
Quick question, Professor. So I typed it in and I got a completely different set of numbers. Is that going to happen often, or should it be the exact same numbers that you get?
No, it'll happen often because we're just generating some random vector. So yeah, for you, it's most likely going to be different.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. If you guys would prefer that I just type in some arrays on my own, I can do that just so you guys can see that you're going to get the same, output as me. Maybe I should do that. Unless I'm making some big matrix, then I won't, but I'll just start typing stuff out. So I'll do that now, actually. We'll do x equals 10, -9, 0, 2, 23. All right, here's our row vector. So if I did max of x this time, and the maximum value is 23, and the minimum of x is going to be -9. Okay. Okay, so we can also display specific rows and columns. So far we've been just looking at a specific element in some array. So that could be a row vector, or it could be a column vector, or it could be a matrix. So we're going to make a matrix here. It'll be easier to show you this way. So I'm going to build this matrix by row vector. So we'll do 2, 0, 2. We're going to make a new row now. 23 to -9 to 8, 9. Okay. So here's our matrix here. So let's say that I want to display the first row of this matrix. So I want to display 2, 0, 2. So for that, I'm going to do A, and then I'm going to have a parentheses here. And then I'm going to type in 1, because I want to look at that first row. And I'm going to use a comma, and I want to specify the column. So we want to look at the first row, so that's going to mean we want to look at all of those columns in that first row. Okay, and then we press enter, and then we get 2, 0, 2. So remember, for a matrix, we have an m by n matrix. So 1 here, that's for m, that's our row. Then we put a comma, and then we're going to specify the columns that we want, n. And in this case, since we want to look at the first row, we're going to put a semicolon, or sorry, a colon. So a colon means show me everything for, in this case, for the columns. All right, let's say I wanted to look at the second row. I'll do A, and I'll do a 2, comma, and then a colon, because I want to look at all of those columns in the second row. And we get 23, 2, and -9.
So we could do the same thing if we want to, if the colon is on the left side and the number on the right side, right?
Yeah, so I'll show you that in a second. So yeah, if we want to look at, let's say the first column, now I'm going to use a colon, like what was just said. So I want to have all of these rows because I'm looking at the first column. So then we'll do comma 1 because I want to have the first column, and then we get 2, 23, 2. So we'll do it for the third column. So again, I want to do all the rows in the third column. Then we get 2, -9, 9. So maybe we want to look at the third. Let's do, yeah, we'll do the third column, but we'll do rows 1 to 2. So for that, we're going to do, oops. So we're going to look at the first 2 rows. So 1, and then we're going to use a colon, 2. So that's saying look at rows 1 and 2, or from rows 1 to 2. And we're going to put a comma, and we want to look at that third column. So for that, now we're getting these 2 values here. That's rows 1 and 2 inside of column 3. Okay. So now I'm going to use the random function just because I want to make a bigger matrix here. Okay, so it's also 10:45 now, so we're just going to work for maybe 10 or so more minutes so you can have time to open up Canvas for the quiz. All right, so I'm just going to make some random matrix here. So again, since I'm using the random function, your matrix is going to look different than mine. So we'll have a range from -20 to 20. And let's do a, I don't know, a 7 by 9 matrix. Okay, so now we have a pretty big matrix here. This time let's look at the the 6th row, or we'll do here, we'll do rows 3 to 6. So if I want to look at rows 3 to 6 here, I'm going to do 3 colon 6. And then maybe I want to look at columns 2 to 4. So then I'll do comma 2 colon 4. And now it's my output is going to be matrix since I have multiple rows and multiple columns that I'm looking at. So I'm doing rows 3 to 6. So 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I'm looking at columns 2 to 4 there. So 2, 3, and 4. So you can kind of see this matrix here. I can't, highlight it like I want, but we have this, we'll do like this. We have this area right here. That's what we had for output. Okay, so again, this is actually a pretty important thing that you're going to be doing as well, where sometimes you only want to look at some specific row or some specific column in an array, or you want to look at some range in that array as well. Okay, so now we have an exercise here. So I want you to create a matrix A on one line by transposing 2 row vectors. So we talked about that a bit earlier. That's not from the previous slide, so I should have fixed that, but that was earlier on in the lecture. And then create a variable out that displays the 3rd row in that matrix. Okay, so I'll give you maybe 2 or so minutes for that. All right, so I have a poll, so just let me know when you're done. Okay, so I'm going to end it right there in the polling, that is. All right, so let's go over this. Clear everything. So, okay, so we wanted to make this matrix A, so we want to make it on one line by transposing 2 row vectors. So we'll do A equals, we're going to make our first row vector 4, 0, 2, 10. Okay, and then I'm going to put I should actually do this. We're going to put a semicolon here. And 1, 9, 5, 10. And then we're going to transpose it, and then we get our matrix right there. Then we're going to create a variable called out, and now we want to give the output for everything that's in the 3rd row. So we're going to do A, and I want to look at the 3rd row, and then I want to look at all of the columns in that 3rd row. And then we get 2 and 5. Okay. Let's see, so we got a little bit more time here. Okay, so range of values, we already talked about that. So just in this exercise here, we're looking at rows 2 and 3, and then column 4. Okay, so we have one more exercise. So this will be the last exercise for today. So work on this, and then we'll end the class. And then we'll have the quiz. So I want you to make this matrix, first of all. You can use whatever method you want. And then from this matrix, I want you to create this row vector u here. So we're gonna take all of the values in this third column. So we have 1, 5, 1, and 1. And we want to look at all the values in the second row, which is 5, 1, 5, 1. And I want you to make a new row vector that starts with all of the values in that second row. And then appended to that, we're going to have all the values in the third column. Okay, so I'm just going to give you about 1 more minute because I want you to have some time to open up Canvas and get that ready for the quiz. Okay, so I'm just going to show you what to do now. Hopefully some of you have finished that, but it is maybe a little tricky at first glance. So we want to make this row vector U from our matrix W. So first off, we need to specify the second row. So we're going to do W. We're going to have the second row and then all of the columns in that second row. And you can use a comma or you can use a space. And now to that, we want to append all of the values in the third row. So if I was just going to do this right now, so we'll do colon, comma 3. So if I did this, I'm going to get an error. So our dimensions aren't correct. So I want to make a row vector. So right now, what I had in this line of code is take this row vector in the second row and then append this column vector in the third row. So those are different dimensions. We have a 1 by 4, and then we have a 4 by 1. So what I have to do is transpose that column vector. So if we do that, then we're going to get this output here. And then we have our row vector that we wanted. Okay, so we'll probably go over this next time just because maybe it's a little confusing at first, but yeah.
Yeah, this
So
was a
right now
little.
yeah, question?
Oh, no.
Okay. So now we're going to end it for today. So your quiz starts in 5 minutes. So I'm going to go to Canvas. Let me go to Student View. So you're going to go to Canvas right now. I'm on the home page. You're going to click on quizzes on the left-hand side here. And then your quiz is going to become available at 11 a.m. So you're going to work on that. You're going to have 15 minutes to do it. There's 8 questions, and you're just going to basically fill in the blank. So we didn't have everyone when I first started the class. So your quiz is going to look like this. Now, this isn't the quiz. This is some random fake quiz I made, but this is what it's going to look like. So up top, you have the time remaining. You're going to have 15 minutes, and then you're going to type in your answer in the blank. So in this case, we had to make some row vector x. So I already defined the variables for you. So for every question, if you have to define a variable, I already put out the variable for you. And then you just need to type out the code to make that variable. So in this case, it'd be 0, 0.234, and then our number. Okay, so any questions on the quiz? And again, you can stay in the Zoom call if you want. If you have any question that I can answer, you can send me a direct message in Zoom. I think you just need to click on my name in Zoom and there should be a way to send me a direct message. All right, so if there's no questions, you can either leave the Zoom call if that's more comfortable for you, or you can stay in the call. All the questions are going to be on one page. So yeah, if you want to work on one that's easier at first, you can do that.
For the answers, would it specify like how many sig figs or how many like decimals do we have to go, or just put in a number, that's it?
Just put in a number and that's it.
Okay.
So I'm going to stay in the Zoom call if any of you have any questions. But, so yeah, we have 3 minutes. So, yeah. So hopefully there shouldn't be any issues, but if there are, that's why I'm staying in here. And then once it's 11, I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to mute my mic. There's no homework for this week, no. I'll probably make homework next week. Also, I said this before, but do not use MATLAB during the quiz. You just need to type it in on your own with your own knowledge. That's why I time it to kind of dissuade you from doing any kind of cheating.